What if I told you that the game of investing, the one that you've been taught your whole life, is rigged against you? Hedge funds don't win because they're the better investors. They win because they're playing completely different games. They buy access to data feeds that cost more than a mansion, and they hire entire teams of PhDs who build algorithms. The system doesn't panic, doesn't sleep, doesn't get emotional. It just executes the strategy. You've worked hard for your money. Now it's time your money works harder for you. This is the Profit Protocol, where cutting-edge AI transforms ordinary investors into wealth-building machines. All right, guys, welcome to episode number 1. And so what if I told you that the game of investing, the one that you've been taught your whole life, is rigged against you? That while you've been told to play it safe and be patient, hedge funds and billionaires have been using an entirely different playbook, one designed to keep you small where they grow astronomically wealthy. That's the dirty little secret that no one on Wall Street wants you to know. And today I'm actually going to pull back the curtain. And here's why you need to listen. Because if you've ever felt frustrated by outdated investing advice, confused by marketing swings, and left wondering why should I buy and hold, and that never seems to make you wealthy, this episode is your wake-up call. By the end of it, you won't just understand why the wealthy keep winning, you'll know how to finally step onto the same playing field. And we're going to take you on a transformation. And you're going to start by realizing just how stacked the deck has been. So you'll feel the frustration of that imbalance. Trust me. But then you'll see how those tools once locked behind the hedge fund walls are now being handed to everyday investors like you. And most importantly, you'll walk away empowered with a new lens on investing. So not fear, not confusion, but clarity, leverage, and access. So this isn't just another episode of financial advice. This is the moment you stop being told to settle for scraps, start getting invited to the full table. Because the Profit Protocol isn't about theory. It's about the blueprint, the actual strategies the ultra wealthy use, decoded and made accessible for you. So if you're tired of guessing, tired of losing, which I was, and tired of watching others win while you play small, well, this is where everything shifts. The game is rigged, and let's call it what it is. Hedge funds don't win because they're the better investors. They win because they're playing completely different games. And now most retail investors, your neighbors, your parents, maybe even you, are told to be patient, diversify, and stay the course. That's the kindergarten version of investing. And yes, it may be cute and it may be safe, but it's designed to keep you on the slow and the very ineffective lane. So meanwhile, hedge funds, they've got fiber optic cables running under the oceans just to shave off a fraction of a second on a trade execution. They buy access to data feeds that cost more than a mansion, and they hire entire teams of PhDs who build algorithms that run faster than human thought. And then they smile politely while they're telling you just buy an index fund. It's like being told to bring a butter knife to a gunfight while other guys got a laser-guided missile system. See, the old playbook versus the real playbook. The traditional advice you've been given is designed for the past. Buy and hold, dollar cost average, ignore the noise. And yes, those things can work, but let's be honest. They're not how billionaires get rich. Billionaires don't just buy an index fund and cross their fingers. They play the real game. Speed, automation, intelligence. That's the playbook you've never been allowed to see until now. So, what's the way out? Here's where Korvato comes in and why this podcast has taken shape. Because Korvato takes the hedge fund playbook, the one guarded like the nuclear codes, and makes it accessible to everyday investors. And this isn't about theory. It's not about sitting in front of charts all day or turning yourself into a math genius. It's about automation. It's about data, execution at speeds and intelligent levels that finally level the playing field. So think of it like this. If the average investor has been running in Walmart sneakers, hedge funds have been running in Olympic grade carbon fiber super shoes. And Korvato hands you those same shoes, laced up, and even points you towards the right track. I don't know why I thought of that. That is the example you get. All right. But here's the case studies. Proof is in the pudding. So, real people's lives now, let's make this real. Here are some stories that make this crystal clear. And by the way, you can see more on our site. One client came in after years of frustration, and every time they bought in the dip kept getting lower. And they admit it. I felt like the market was personally trolling me. With Korvato's automation, they stopped guessing. And for the first time in years, they didn't just match the market, they outpaced it. And not in a flashy lottery ticket way, but in a steady, compounding way that finally gave them peace of mind. I'm not going to go over all of the clients and the client wins on the show. You can find so many of those on our website. What I wanted you guys to know is they just made their money work for them. And how, as they used Korvato, they quietly outperformed the portfolio their financial advisor had built. And imagine going back to that advisor, the same one who said, don't expect to beat the market, and showing them real results they prove otherwise. Well, that's the power of access. And one of my favorite stories from someone who flat out said, I don't have time for this. They didn't want to babysit their money. They didn't want to live in fear of the headlines. They wanted growth, and they wanted the growth without the grind. And that's exactly what automation delivers. The system doesn't panic, doesn't sleep, doesn't get emotional. It just executes the strategy. So while they went on living their life, Korvato just kept working. Now, these are not hedge fund managers. They're not billionaires. They're people like you and me who finally got access to the other side of the game. And here's why this matters now. If you're listening to this now, we're in a time when retail investors feel totally left behind more than ever. The markets are volatile, news cycles are chaotic, and traditional advice hasn't kept up. But here's the truth. The wealth gap isn't about money. It's about access. Access to data, access to speed, and access to automation. In Korvato, what we aim to do is help you close that gap in every one of these episodes. So it's hands down the tools that you were once locked away from, the things that were locked away in an ivory tower. Well, now we're going to give you a chance to finally play in the real game. So let's recap. You're stepping in right now into episode 1. You came here believing that the market was a mysterious beast. And maybe you've even thought it was rigged against you. You've seen the reality that hedge funds have always had the upper hand because of access. Maybe you felt the frustration of the imbalance. And now you've seen the way out. Automation and intelligence that no longer belong only to the billionaires. So the next step is empowerment, guys. Not fear, not confusion, but the clarity of knowing you don't have to settle for crumbs anymore. The buffet is basically open. So here's my challenge to you. I would want you to not walk away from this episode and go back to playing the old game. Don't settle for advice that was designed for a different era. The wealthy play a faster, smarter, automated game, and now so can you. Because at the end of the day, the only real difference between you and a hedge fund isn't intelligence. It isn't discipline. It isn't even courage. Like I said before, it's access. And for the first time, that access is no longer reserved for billionaires with the secret handshake or the behind the doors crazy nod. Guys, welcome to Korvato. Welcome to the Profit Protocol. Don't just listen, level up. Head to Korvato.com now and book your free demo and let AI show you what your money's really capable of.